By all accounts, my friends, that right there is the Switch 2 spinning in a case. That is what it's going to be. That is what it's going to look like. That is the size, and we have the exact specs down to the millimeter. Things are getting crazier and crazier, and finally, everybody's just started to spill the beans, and today has more details on exactly the size and specs of the system and the functionality of the buttons. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hit that like button if you're excited to find out that the Switch 2 is basically a Switch 1, but bigger, and we now know what those pedals on the back do. Now, a number of different people have commented on this. A number of different accessories manufacturers have posted pictures of cases and screen protectors, but Dbrand has gone out of their way to just straight up give us the specs. Now, I've worked with Dbrand in the past. They're a pretty crazy company. I think they do very good work, but they kind of operate in a way that's very unique. They're very ballsy, they're very brash, they're very bold, and some might say they operate kind of outside of the normal lines of what, a traditional company should behave like. And this is a great example of that because they're just straight up talking about the Switch 2. They say that they have a 3D scan of the real hardware. Their CEO is saying that this is exactly what the Switch 2 looks like inside of its case, and they have a 3D scan of the real hardware, not a 3D model that was printed by somebody else and sent to them, not a, information that they got off of Alibaba or off of Reddit. They have a 3D scan of the hardware itself, and when asked how Adam Ijaz, the CEO of Dbrand, got the actual dimensions, he said, "Nice try, Nintendo." This future is super crazy. I honestly can't believe we have all this information today, but here and now is also important, like this weekend, this day, this hour, this minute, this second, and that's where Cubic Games Holiday Bonanza comes in. Big thanks to Cubic Games for sponsoring this video. They have a crazy 99% off sale running on the Switch right now. You gotta click the link in the description down below and check out all their games. So many are 19 cents, and that means you can get 5 or 6 games for under $1, even if you only spend an hour with all of them. That's still such a good value and such a good use of some self-care. Get yourself some eShop games this weekend as you prep for the holidays and spend all your money on others for gifts, which is good, but sometimes, you need something fun yourself. Even Star Trek Legends, their upcoming Christmas Day release, is on sale right now, and if you grab their coloring book app for free, you get access to these 19-cent and 99-cent prices on a ton of different games, tons of different genres, and I highly recommend you check out MasterChef and Leo's Fortune. Those are my 2 favorites, but definitely click the link in the description down below. Every time you do it, helps support the channel and allows me to keep doing what I love doing with all of you, talking about Nintendo Switch and, of course, Switch 2. That the Switch 2 is going to be 270 millimeters wide, 116 millimeters tall, 14 millimeters thick, and the console takes up 200 millimeters worth of width. Very, very interesting. Now, this goes in comparison to the Switch 1 specs, which we can see here listed, are 242 millimeters wide, 102 millimeters tall, and 13.9 millimeters thick. So we're looking at an extra 38 millimeters of width, we're looking at an extra 14 millimeters of height, and we're looking at an extra 0.1 millimeters of thickness. So they didn't really bump the thickness, which is great, but they boosted the size. And a lot of people have seen, these comparison shots that show what the Switch 2 versus the Switch 1. It's a bigger screen. It's basically an OLED, but bigger. And here you go. Like, this is what you are getting. It gets better than that, though, because there's a subsequent leak, but I find this just to be absolutely crazy that they're just straight up talking about it. The CEO of Dbrand continues that the kickstand will measure around half the console's height at 55 millimeters. A diagonal measurement of the cover glass supports previous rumors about an 8-inch screen. So this is what we've been hearing for a long time. 8-inch screen, going to be bigger significantly than the Switch 1 screen, than the Switch OLED screen. It is going to be a hefty system with a much more stabilizing kickstand. This is everything that we've heard. And so Dbrand is saying that, yeah, everything that we've heard is correct and not based on each other. Remember how I was talking about sort of this like butterfly effect theory of like chicken or egg, like is everybody just basing their next rumor on the past rumor? But according to Adam Ijaz, he says that they have a 3D scan of the actual hardware, not just a mock that someone sent them or that they pulled off of some Chinese forum. If we go back, he says that the pedals on the back are going to be to detach the Joy-Con. He says that those buttons are just merely going to be detachment buttons, which is really a huge bummer. Giving us a full pedal to detach the Joy-Con feels crazy, but given how problematic and annoying the rails were on Switch 1, I can see that Nintendo wanted to go full bore and make this as easy as possible. Now I'm going to double up this evidence from a user on r/Nintendo Switch 2 that claims to have held and seen a Switch 2 final unit, and they have sent proof to the moderators, and the moderators said, WTF, they actually had evidence that's very new. This person is unironically telling the truth, and they're following up on the exact same thing, saying that the 2 back buttons are indeed the Joy-Con release buttons. So this is now a 2-tiered level of confirmation that those buttons are no additional buttons, nothing customizable, but just straight up releases for your Joy-Con. If we go back to Dbrand, he says that, yep, they are going to be magnetic. They're magnetically attached. And he says the controller portions of Dbrand's case can detach with them inside. The controller portions of Dbrand's case can detach with them inside. His new case takes, I don't even really know what that means. Like, you can detach the controllers while they're in the case, I guess? I don't know. That doesn't, is that a feature? Is that something you want to do? I want to keep I want to keep everything safe as I can. He goes on to say that he does not know what the C button is. They don't know what the C button is. And if we go back to this Reddit user, they don't, I think, have any clue what the C button is either. They go on to say that the console doesn't feel heavier than the current Switch. The buttons and sticks are marginally larger than the current Switch, which is good. Magnetically attaching the Joy-Cons to the console makes a mechanical click sound. He goes on to say that dock has the same ports as the Switch OLED dock, and it's a bit larger but curved, so much of the screen pops out. Game card slot looks the same. The top side of the Joy-Con when attached is a surprise feature. Oh, and the magnets themselves are buttons. That to me is very interesting. While no one knows what the button does on the C, the magnets themselves are buttons. So our buttons on the inside of the Joy-Con controller that were very difficult to press and that were hidden, obviously by it being slid in, are now apparently going to be buttons themselves and should be a little bit more convex then, as opposed to so barely concave and difficult to press. I love having bigger buttons in general for every portion of the Switch, slightly bigger sticks, slightly bigger face buttons, slightly bigger Joy-Con buttons when detached. Now, if we go back here, the Joy-Con stands 6.27 millimeters tall. D-pad and ABXY buttons protrude by 1.57 millimeters with a 180 millimeter wide kickstand and back trigger that extends 9.1 millimeters. This is interesting, and it makes the Joy-Con a bit bigger as we've expected to fit, obviously, the bigger console itself. If we go out back to this one, comparing the evidence there, he says the ZL and ZR buttons are larger than the current Switch, so that's a little bit more information there. The sticks are Hall effect sticks, which will prevent them from doing any sort of drifting or getting stuck, anything of that sort. And then up here, he says mechanically attaching the Joy-Cons makes a mechanical click sound, and the console is called Switch 2, and the logo is the Switch logo with a giant 2 on the side. That's a very funny point to me because it's about as obvious and interesting as it possibly could be, or obviously as least interesting as it possibly could be. It's just a Switch with a 2. And so I think they're going to use that click sound just as the same click, right? That way they can use the same thing. You have the slide click, and now you have the push click. So I don't know if the iconography on the trailers is going to go from like, choop, Nintendo Switch to choop, Nintendo Switch, like coming together, or if they're just going to keep it the same. In terms of release, we continue on there. Dbrand does seem to know a lot about the console. Ijaz is genuinely unsure about its potential release date, although he says that Dbrand is working toward a late March, early April release for its case. Freaking crazy to me. That's what we've been talking about, right? Some people saying June, some people saying July. I've been harping on this, like I think they're going to do it March or April, and Dbrand is prepping towards a late March or early April release for the case because they must think that there's a good shot that the system is ready to go right after Q1 or right towards the tail end of Q1. Remember, they don't need to reveal any of this. They don't have to talk about any of this, but they're being so blatantly overt and so blatantly truthful and so blatantly just sharing what they know that I think this is a key point and very important that they say a late March or April release date. Now, if we go back to this Reddit user with the proofed evidence, he says he heard the reveal is next month for a Nintendo meeting, but does not really give a release date. I think they may be referring to the investor meeting on February 4th. I think they're going to do that before that date, right? He's saying it's next month for a Nintendo meeting. So to me, that means that they're doing a reveal in anticipation of this meeting because they want to have it out before the investor meeting. They're not going to have it the day of the investor meeting. They're not going to have it after the investor meeting. They would have it before, which would be a January reveal, as we've been starting to piece together in time for their February 4th investors meeting, and then getting ready for a late March or early April launch. I think that's what's really going to happen and come together here. It's interesting that Dbrand is doing this. They've done it before. They made a not Animal Crossing dock. They made not Animal Crossing Joy-Con. They made Zelda skins that really look just like the exact Tears of the Kingdom skins. And Dbrand has no freaking clue. Now, this does line up with what we talked about the other day, that SwitchUp, the channel, got sent a 3D sort of model of it. But again, Dbrand is one-upping them by saying they have an actual 3D scan of the console that is real, not just a 3D model from somebody that's estimating. And if we go to this person who supposedly has proven evidence, the moderators have approved and seen and like are shocked that they have evidence, this is exactly what it is. Now, whatever this top side of the Joy-Con when detached as a surprise feature means, I don't know. This could be something to do with those buttons, those pedals, like what they do when they're not attached. Because if it's a detached button, an eject button, does it have any purpose when it is not on the console? Does it have any purpose when it's being used separately? I think it could, it might. That's a pretty big button to just have it be defunct. And maybe that's the way they had to make it work, or maybe they think it makes it look cool or different. But to me, that is a lot of wasted space in plastic if it's just going to be an eject button. Now, one thing that this Reddit post has that Dbrand does not have at all is that their unit was dark gray, but they say there's apparently also a full white SKU with both Joy-Con and the tablet all white, very reminiscent of the release of the Switch OLED, and another special edition SKU is themed around a game with a 9, which is a huge hint to Mario Kart 9. Now, this is going to be sort of the underlayer of this entire video, but this person is basically confirming alongside their evidence that is very, very truthful about the Switch 2 that Mario Kart 9 is going to be releasing very close to the launch of the system. They're saying that there's a dark gray, which could just be a production model. That could just be a dev kit model. White seems to be how it's going to launch. And then there's a special edition SKU themed around a game with a 9, and name me another game that's going to be 9 except Mario Kart 9. And if they're already showing, or if this person has already seen a special edition SKU that is related to Mario Kart 9, it's not like Mario Kart 9 is coming out in 2 years. It's like Mario Kart 9 is coming out in 2025, and Nintendo delaying this system till 2025 and beefing up their launch window lineup to have a 3D Mario and to have a Mario Kart 9 means an absolutely killer year and guarantees millions and millions of sales in a way that just about nobody can. I don't know that there is a better system seller game right now than Mario Kart 9. The only other would be GTA 6, but obviously we know GTA 6 is not a console exclusive. It is not a platform exclusive. It's everywhere. If some company could get that, I'd say, yeah, that's absolutely a system seller and better than Mario Kart 9, probably, despite my Nintendo bias. But I think that Mario Kart 9 right now is the best system seller any platform holder can possibly push forth. And Nintendo, while not needing that to launch a successful system, because of how heavily they've harped on the importance of transition, Mario Kart 9 is going to be the game that absolutely guarantees them a home run, even if everything else was done poorly and mediocrely. Just in the same way that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe made the Switch a huge success right off the bat, Mario Kart 9 will do the same, and I'm very excited to see what the special edition is, especially if the main console that we get on launch day is a full white SKU. I have nothing against the full white SKU. I think it looks cool, but I do prefer the different color Joy-Con. I like the neon red and neon blue. I understand that they'd probably want to make this Switch 2 seem more high-end, feel more high-end, but it's weird to me that they would go white when white is what they did with the OLED. And so the last newly revealed iteration from Nintendo, besides special editions of course, is a white Switch, and now you're doing it again. It does seem a bit repetitive, and maybe it will introduce some confusion, but we've got the dimensions that are going to make it seem bigger and look bigger. We've got the eject buttons that are going to make the back look weird, and we've got that strange U-shaped kickstand that I think is, again, something that is being used because, yes, it's functionally better, but also it helps differentiate and distinguish the system. This is absolutely bananas. This is absolutely crazy. You're getting the specs of the Switch well before Nintendo has put them forth. You're getting details on the buttons. The mystery here is what this C button is. Why does nobody know what the C button is? And I'll give you my best guess as to why. Everything else is mechanically related to the function of a Switch that could be 3D printed or does not need internals to work. This person apparently has held a final unit Switch 2, and that to me means that they have held a working Switch 2. But based on Dbrand's evidence, they're saying that they were sent a 3D scan, which means they've never had access to any sort of innards. So they wouldn't know what the C button does, but they would know what those eject buttons do because that is a mechanical feature. That is something that is going to impact the system, whether it's on or off. And this person says, yes, they're indeed the Joy-Con release buttons, but they also are able to say that there's a click sound, and they're able to say about the Switch 2 logo, and they're able to say that there is a secret feature to the top side of the Joy-Con. They're able to say it's an LCD screen, the Hall effect sticks. I feel like they must know more about the system. They also say the dock has the same port as the Switch OLED and is a bit larger but curved, whereas when asked about the dock, Dbrand CEO said that he doesn't know about Nintendo's possible TV dock for the Switch 2, but the assumption is that the form factor will be similar to the previous gen, and he doesn't know if the screen will be LCD or OLED. So again, he's got a 3D scan, and they've got the dimensions. So Dbrand is providing the dimensions, but this user on Reddit is providing even more. They're providing insight about what colorways we're going to get, and they're providing apparently access to a functioning Switch 2 rather than just a Switch 2 that reveals the dimensions and the physical aspects. What's interesting is that they do not make mention of that C button, even though it apparently seems like they could. They must not know what it's used for, or they must not have seen something that takes advantage or that button being used. Like maybe they do have access to a dev unit, or maybe they've seen a dev unit in use, but they themselves have not been able to press that C button to see what it does. So it's interesting to me that we have so much detail on the mechanical side, but we're still waiting on more of the UI and the hardware side of like the inner hardware side, right? The software side as well, obviously, of what this can be and what this can do. But don't get it mixed up. This is absolutely huge. This is crazy. And it's something that, I don't know, it feels so modern era. It feels so crazy that Dbrand, a very legitimate, very successful, very popular company that makes skins, accessories, and cases, is just saying, hey, here's the Switch 2, what do you call it? Specs. Here's the Switch 2 dimensions. Here's all the measurements. Here it is, late March, early April, boom. Like this Reddit post, sure. This isn't very like crazy. Someone could do this. It's crazy that they have actual evidence, but making a sort of nebulous, inconspicuous Reddit post is one thing. Being the CEO of a major manufacturer and just saying like, ta-da, we're giving all the information to you is crazy. This system is going to be announced very soon. Not in the next 10 days, not in the next 15 days, but in the next 3 weeks, I think so. First, second week of January, I think is when you're going to see the system for yourselves. Nintendo knows like, well, this stuff is spoiled, but the biggest thing they've got is games. As I mentioned before, with any generation, you know the system is going to be more powerful, and you know it should be a little bit bigger and better. That's exactly what the Switch 2 is thus far, and they've improved the controller, which they do with just about every system, right? The PlayStations, the Xboxes, they always improve things like this. The hardware power, the controllers. That makes sense. Nintendo's ace in their sleeve, and why they're probably not worried about this, and why I don't think they're panicking, is stuff like the C button. And stuff like the games itself. It's stuff like revealing Mario Kart 9 despite the hints because people will go crazy. It's stuff like revealing Mario 3D next-gen version in 4K because people will be going crazy. It's stuff like whatever they've got as a secret new IP or a spin-off, people will go crazy. This is an era where software means more than hardware, in my opinion. I think that's a great thing. I feel like this current year, 2024, has been a lot more about hardware over software. Oh, a PS5 Pro, it's so great. But what can you play? Right, we've got all of these handheld systems that are great, but they're playing the same games. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fun things to play this year. I like my PS5, not getting a Pro. I like my handhelds, my portable PCs, my Steam Deck. But games should be the emphasis and games should be the focus. And all of this, revealing the specs, revealing the size, revealing the eject button, revealing the colorways, it doesn't spoil any of the best part, the secret sauce that makes this Switch 2 so exciting, what you'll play on it. I think that's why this is so awesome, and it's why I don't think Nintendo minds so much. I mean, I'm sure they don't want people to reveal their stuff and leak their stuff, right? Like they don't want that. Nobody wants that. But at the end of the day, knowing that this system is 270 millimeters wide, what does that tell you about the next 3D Mario? The innovations that they're making to one-up Astrobot? What does that tell you about the next Mario Kart? The innovations they're making to one-up their own multiplayer masterpiece, their 60 million seller? It tells you nothing. What are they doing to make Metroid Prime 4 stand out in the Switch? What are they doing to make Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom play better in the Switch? Their playbook is still under wraps. Yeah, you might know the specs. Yeah, you might have seen a 3D scan. You might even have seen a system on, but we know nothing that's actually Nintendo. All of this is produced in a factory. All of this is made elsewhere. But Nintendo, what they make, nobody knows. Nobody knows what they've done for this system to make it special and shine, and that gives me goosebumps. That's exciting because at the end of the day, it's Nintendo that makes the Switch the Switch. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you pumped about this? You now know the specs. You now know more details. You now know the colorways. And all we have to do is see the official reveal. And I'm telling you, I think this system is coming out March or April, not June or July. And that's so sick because the year is almost over, which is sad, weird. It goes so fast. But at the same time, holy crap, we're going to be playing Switch 2 in like 3.5 months. So let me know your take in the comments down below, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Dbrand, I mean, thank you. You're crazy, but thank you for dropping all this sauce. And thank you to the secret Reddit user with the proven evidence that they've held the Switch 2, which is also crazy. You're lucky. I'm jealous of you. And until next time, everybody, thanks for being a part of this Switch 2 spectacular with me. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.